Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. Read your Rosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educators spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. Come rock with me and get down to this new jam. Reaching out to my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Mauri, talo falava, and welcome to the Reads of Rosa podcast. On today's show, we are celebrating Kiribati Language Week, and so we have a special guest. We are joined by a self-published Pasifika author based in the UK. She is part Kiribati and part British. She is the author of the fantasy fiction series Benhar. It is my honor to welcome to the show Felicity Maddison.
Mauri, Rosa.
How are you, Felicity?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good, thank you. Just so for everyone listening or watching, you don't know how excited I am. Felicity is someone that I met through our Pasifika Bookstagram community on Instagram maybe a year ago, or maybe more than a year ago. It was around the time of the Pasifika Readathon Challenge, I'm pretty sure. And so finally, I got myself together and I've been able to, we sorted out a time. And so we have Felicity here today and I'm really excited.
Thank you so much.
How's the weather out your way, Felicity?
It's actually sunny for a change. We're hitting summer. We keep getting reports of heat waves coming along and it's staying hot. So I've recently been in Italy and I think the heat has just basically come back with me from holiday. So I don't know how long it'll stay though, because our holidays or basically our summers here are a joke. It's like 2 days, but it's probably like 2 weeks and then that is it. It's back into the rainy season and the cold.
Really?
It's like an ongoing joke in the UK. We get like a couple of weeks of summer and then it's gone. Yeah.
We're going to get into your work, but I do appreciate Felicity because you are such a staunch supporter and you're always supporting and putting the podcast out there and just promoting just the stuff that I do on Bookstagram. So I really appreciate that, people don't have to do that, but it's those little gestures that made me think, okay.
I love watching your podcast.
So I do appreciate you and I'm really grateful to have you here today. As I mentioned in the introduction, you are half Kiribati and British. So I wanted to really get us started by talking about your cultural roots because you've got Kiribati, Irish roots, Chinese roots. So tell us a little bit about that mix of cultures and what that was like for you. As a young child growing up?
So the Irish one's a bit contested and I'll get into that. I should probably go back, way back. So I'm the youngest of 3. And we're RAF children. So my dad's in the RAF. He met my mum out in Vanuatu. So she was working for Nauruan Airlines. And then I know. They met in her cousin Rosie's restaurant / hotel over there. And really weird story. I think what my parents tell me is that her and another air stewardess were trying to get away from a man on the flight that was harassing them. And so I don't know why the Brits were over there, but they were in Vanuatu to help with some political issue, I think, in Fiji at the time. And they were just staying in the hotel and they're like, come and sit with us. We'll make sure you're okay. And that's how they met. So my dad being in the RAF, I was born out in Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland is part of the UK. Right. But, there's few issues
the
there
history,
as well,
yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Full on history. So as far as I'm aware, no one in the family is actually ethnically Irish. But because I'm born there, I'm entitled to Irish. Well, I am an Irish citizen as well. All to do with the Good Friday Agreement.
Right.
Another load of history.
Yes.
So I do, after Brexit, I have got my Irish passport. I'm still European.
Yeah.
And then, so my mum's side of the family, obviously from Kiribati, my mum was born in Abayang, one of the islands. I believe the family are they're from Abamama, Tarawa, mainly based in Berso in Tarawa, which is the main island in Kiribati. But we also have a lot of Chinese ethnicity in the family. So my granddad on my mum's side of the family, he's actually pure Chinese because his parents were over in the islands. I think it was the Second World War, helping the Australians and the New Zealanders with the communications out in the Pacific. And then my grandmother is also Chinese and Kiribati. So me and my sisters look very different to my Kiribati cousins, because they've got obviously Chinese heritage well, but their parents are more Kiribati, whereas my dad is white, or as Kiribati people like to say, Imatun. So yeah, I think I look more like my dad's side of the family, but it's funny because my elder sister is. She looks more Indian, actually. It's quite funny. And then my middle sister looks more like my mum. So she's got more of the Kiribati Chinese look. Yeah, it's really funny. And then people look at me and they're like I get it from Chinese people as well. It's like, you're not part of Chinese. It's like, yeah. I am. Yeah. So that's where the mix is. So not technically Irish, but I was born there, so I can say I am when I feel like it.
When you feel, there's nothing wrong with that. Have you been to Kiribati, or have you met, or you have?
Yeah, so we're quite lucky in the UK. I say when we were kids, there was a much smaller contingent of Kiribati people here. But my mum has got a couple of cousins here. Obviously, we've got second cousins then as well. But it's much bigger. I went to, so here we have a thing called the Kiribati and Tongaroo Association. So Tongaroo is actually the actual official Kiribati name for the islands. So that's basically when we hold the Independence Day here. And I went for the first time in ages because I'm a bad Kiribati girl. I should go more often. I went last year, and it's just, there's so many of us here now. It's amazing. So I've got to speak to some newer faces that I hadn't seen before, but there's always the old guard that are here, or the Kiribati expats over here. But my elder sister and my middle sister have lived out in Kiribati as children. And my middle sister Sarah was born there, but I actually first visited in 2010, and it was amazing. Yeah, just wonderful. Tara was definitely much busier because that's where most of the population is. That's where most of the work is. But we did get to spend a couple of weeks out in Abamama. And it was just wonderful. I cried when I landed, and I met my grandparents there, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah, it's just wonderful. It's just such a different way of life. I'm not sure about if it's people feel the same when they're in Australia, New Zealand, but definitely in the UK. So you forget how busy it is. And when you are in the islands, everything is very much short in time, isn't it? And you're forced to just step back, relax, and it's just all positivity. There's no negativity. You're cut off from the world, and it's wonderful. Yeah, and I'm quite a stress head. So this is great for me.
You need that more often.
Yeah, definitely. And when I got there, I met like loads of so many cousins, which is wonderful. But we were picked up, and I was sat on the back of a truck, the family truck, and my cousins were like, "That's your cousin. That's your cousin. That's your cousin. That's your cousin. Oh, that's your cousin." I'm like, "What?" I've got like 4 cousins over here, first cousins, like that are like the British side. So, but it was just trying to keep up with everyone and realize how big the family is, and yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I know, it's
That
crazy.
sounds wow. Big family, huh? Islander
Very big.
families.
Very. Yeah.
Man. So I wanted to talk about reading a bit. Before we kind of get into your writing and your published work. Were you always a reader when you were growing up? Do you know what I mean? Or yeah, what was that like for you?
Very hit and miss, actually.
Mm.
I was when I was in primary school, so very little, and I feel like that's more to do with the schools I went to.
Oh,
So I think my primary schools are very into, you must have dedicated reading time a couple of times a week, and they would, you say, in the next hour, you've all got to pick a book and you need to read.
right.
There's more like a force thing, but you get into it, don't you, as a child? You're like, well, I get to pick a book and discover a new story. Don't really think that much about it at the time, but you think that, looking back, it's a good thing. And then I hit secondary school, and everything is laid out in the curriculum for you, isn't it? So you must read these certain textbooks, and the joy kind of gets a little bit sapped out of reading, doesn't it? And you don't read for pleasure at that point. You're reading because you need to pass an exam. So I didn't read much like in my younger teens. So it was definitely on and off. And then my sister Sarah is an avid reader, a huge reader. And she recommended, I can't even remember what book it is, but she was like, you must read this book. It's really, really good. So she got me back into reading like later in my teens. So it must be about 15 or 16. And by that point, I'd already chosen my subjects for exams. This was for A levels. So I would be 16, so 16 to 18, that bracket. And I didn't choose English or history, which are my favourite subjects. I chose completely odd subjects. And I kind of regretted that. So I actually quit school because at that time, you can't do it. You have to stay in full-time education until you're 18 here. Whereas when I was still at school, you could leave after 16 and go into work. Makes me sound like I'm really old. In my day. But I quit sixth form. We were like the experimental group for the new A levels, and you could quit after the first year or whatever and leave. So I quit, went into work, and then I thought I'm going to go back to education and do it like a year later. I did part-time English at college, and it kind of from there it started for me. I started reading more again, mainly because my sister and being in a different atmosphere. I think especially here for me, when you stay in sixth form in a school, they don't treat you as adults. They still speak to you as though you're a child. Whereas you go to college, your tutors are talking to you like an adult, and they were definitely more enthusiastic about the literature and the language that they're teaching you. And that's why I got back into reading for enjoyment. And being more interested in the writing side of it as well. Yeah.
Ooh. So then when did you want to be a writer? Like, when did you decide, hey, this is actually something I'm good at? Like,
I don't think it was something I was aware that I may be good at. I just, when you think, I really want to write a book. So I don't know how you feel about this, but when you read certain books, and I think specifically for our Pacific Islander background, living in the UK, there's no Pacific Islander characters.
Mm.
And you think something's not right here. Like, these books are great that I'm reading, but I can't see me in those books. I can't see my family in these books. Or at least half of the family are not in this book. So at that point, I was like, it'd be really nice to like read books and discover books that have Pacific Islander references, characters, the culture in there. And I think as well, with traditionally published books, they have, you know, their set lists they have to work to.
Right.
They're spinning it for a certain audience. They're you know, whoever they choose to publish. Obviously, you know, it is a machine, the industry, isn't it? And there are a lot of books that are churned out that you wouldn't necessarily want to read, but they're just there and you have to buy them. I just think when you start reading more books that are pushed in the shops, and for me, I was just like, well, it does not all of them resonate with me, you know. And I think that's why I was thinking, it'd be nice to have a book that combines my heritage in one. And that's when I was started to get interested in the writing side. But it's also, I think, especially going back to college, I did think the way that they taught the course, both the literature side and the language side of the course, they were just so much more enthusiastic about it than what I found with my teachers at school. And I just thought, God, you just get into. I got back into it, and I was like, I'd really like to try and write, but I don't know if I can. So, I mean, I was 17 at the time. I think I went back to college, and it wasn't until like over a decade later that I decided to write. So it took me a long time to get there. But yeah,
like I just want to comment because something you said, like, I think for me when I was growing up, I didn't think about I just loved to read. Like, I was just at the library getting books and books and books. I didn't ever think about who wrote this book. Do you know what I mean? And it was in like history and English were like my favorite subjects. Well, English, and it was there that I learned about like civil rights and history, apartheid, and I used to just read anything around there. I never used to think about you know, what narrative is being pushed in this text. You know, like I never thought about that, and it wasn't until university where I realized, oh, hey.
Yeah,
Oh,
something is
okay.
not right here. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so this is written from a certain perspective, very Eurocentric, you know, so it wasn't in and then of course becoming a teacher and then looking at resources in the English department, looking at resource like texts that were being used, you know, resources for history, and then realizing, oh wow, we really are a bit one-sided in terms of the texts that we well, I mean, because I'm from Auckland, you know, and there are a lot of Pacific Islanders, you know, in Auckland.
Yes.
But also just thinking about, like how are we reaching out to our students with these types of texts. Obviously now with technology and access to books, even online, to audio, I think a lot has changed. But yeah, when you were talking about that, I was like, oh yeah, I wasn't one of those that really, I just wanted to read. I was just like anything and everything. I just wanted to get my hands on it and read. So that's all I wanted to just comment.
I think for me, I think I'm quite it's gonna sound bad, I'm quite a cynical person, and I question what's in front of me a lot of the time. And I think it's because going back to like the Royal Air Force routes, we were based in Hong Kong for a bit when we were kids, and there was just such a massive mix of children. I don't remember any sort of pinpointing or racism when we were over there, because not only are you in this like little bubble of RAF children, like these nomadic children in this like a village that is on the move basically, and got a real mix of like diversity within the kids. Like you don't think about it until you look back and think, this is why I liked living there, because you weren't different to anybody. And you don't notice that there's any difference as such. And obviously we were within another culture as well. We were within Hong Kong, which was a mix. It's Chinese, but there's some British, a lot of British influence over there, whether that's good or bad. And then when we moved to the UK as kids, obviously we are half British, and I remember my sisters just crying, going, we don't want to go there. It's horrible. Like they were crying in the hall. I can remember this. They were crying in the hallway at our married quarters where we lived. And I was like, what's wrong? And they were like, we've got to go back to the UK. It's a horrible place. And I was thinking, okay. And we all started crying. But getting to the UK, it was fine. But then they were just like, growing up here, you know, people, you know, where are you from? They don't accept that you're British. It's like, where are you from? No, where are you from? Things, you know, you're made to feel a little bit different. Whether people realize they were doing that or not, it was more adults than children. So I think for me, it started from then. It's like everything that is put in front of you, you kind of question it a little bit. And as much as, you know, I will, you know, read Jane Austen and really enjoy the book and not even think about, you know, there are no Pacific Islander characters there, because historically there wouldn't be in that particular era, all those in that society. But as I think it just creeps in depending on circumstances and situations you've been put in as you grow up. And I mean, by no means I wasn't, you know, singled out specifically because I was seen by some people as different, but there's just like little instances throughout the year. So you like the years, and I think you just become aware of it more. And I think again, as you hit a certain age, like college, or you do start, when you are presented with different texts, or you're told to look at a book differently, or your history differently, you then think, okay, there needs to be a bit more of a mix and diversity here to include everyone and not just have one perspective. So yeah, I think I'm just a critical person as well, and I think I can't see what I want to see as well.
Who are some of your favorite authors though? Like, or is there a book that kind of stands out in your mind? Like,
I think for me, The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks. So I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a very bizarre book, I'd say, and you either will love it or you will hate it. Okay. And this is a book that was recommended to me by my English lit teacher at college, and what really got me back into reading. So although my sister was like pushing me to read more books and telling me, you know, you enjoy certain books like Harry Potter and all that stuff, The Wasp Factory kind of opened my eyes, and also opened my eyes to writing and how people's brains work. Like when you read certain books, I don't know about you, but I think, how on earth did this author come up with this idea? And also, is there something wrong with them? As fascinating as it is, you think there's something not right with this author. So for me, Ian Banks, because The Wasp Factory, and I would recommend this book to everyone, because it's, how to explain it? It's very dark. It's based around this kid who is, I think he's like 16, 17 in the book. And he's quite a troubled kid. He is a psychopath, is the best way to explain it. This young, and it's so, yeah, I was recommended this book because we had to compare two books for an assignment, and I chose a book by it's quite obscure, really. Toby Litt did a book called Dead Kid Songs, and it's about these 4 boys that live in a village, and they go on their own little adventures, but it's also quite warped. I was like, what do I compare this with? And he said to me, you need to try reading The Wasp Factory. He goes, it's a bit odd, but you'll understand when you start reading it why I think you should compare it to that book. And I'm drawn to quite dark characters in books. I find them fascinating, not because I want to be them or anything. It's just like, how are they like this? And when something's so different to you, do you think this is just bizarre? So I would recommend that book on the basis of how just different it is and crazy it is, but there's a lot of black humor in it, which I mean, it's probably the Northern Irish thing here. A lot of black humor. If you ever read any books by Northern Irish writers, they are so like dark and twisted, but unbelievably funny that when you're reading, you think, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it is so funny because they've obviously the conflict over there, it's quite dark, but for them to deal with it, they use a lot of humor, and that's what's like to me. And he is a Scottish author. He's passed now. There's some of the dark points in the book are dealt with black humor, so it is quite shocking. But it's, to me, that book was like, oh my god, like this is what you can write. So that it's not your normal nice clean classic books or a nice love or romance story. It's completely different. I was like, okay, I like this author. He's very odd. I think that's one of his strange books. But yeah, it's definitely out there. But his work is more on the human experience. And it's quite dark, but I would say there's like a hint of reality in there as well. He does have his critics, Ian Banks, but I think just for me, that book, because it was so different to what I was used to reading and so extreme in a sense, I'd recommend that book just because it's so weird.
I'm gonna look it up after this.
It's so weird and very troubling, but at the same time you can't help but laugh at some of the things because it is weird.
I'm gonna look it up after this. So I want to this leads us into your writing, your fantasy fiction series. So your writing is inspired by your Micronesian, British, and Chinese roots and your love for fantasy fiction. You are you like detective thrillers? Right? You think you will eventually like to be someone who writes detective.
Yeah, hopefully. I have a character in mind for those books.
Okay.
But I think I'm going to park that whilst I finish this series off, and then I'll get to it. Yeah.
So let's talk about your book. I had to get these out of my suitcase because I'm already packed to go home this weekend, and this is going with me to New Zealand. We're going to New Zealand. This is my summer reading. So tell us about these amazing books. I have a lot of questions about obviously self-publishing and promotion of your writing, but first of all, please speak to us about these gems.
So the series is Benhar, which is the name of the capital city in the fantasy fiction world of the Abram Empire. And so I've only got the 2 books out at the minute.
Yes.
The first book was published in 2019, and I've had that's the 3rd revision you've got there, I think. And I'll go into that on the self-publishing side, why there's 3 editions of that.
Right.
So that was a huge learning curve for me. That book is very much the introduction into the series and introducing the main characters and the backdrop and the nucleus for the I suppose the story to just explode onto the page is the word. The protagonist is a character called Fiona Doven, and she is, again, when we say, you know, when you look at books you think, oh, I can't see any Pacific Islanders in these books that I'm reading. She's like more of a representation of like the mix of my sisters and I culture. So she is an islander, but she obviously has a father who is part of the Abraham Empire and is from the Abraham Empire. So in that respect, when you look at the books, you need to look at her and her brothers and her not her mother, but her and her brothers as half islanders and half, I would say, European. When you read the books, you'd have to, that's how it is. So even though it's fantasy fiction, in parallel to our world, that's how I would suggest you look at her character. And her mum is an islander. So they are based out in an island called Vanu, which is a nod to Vanuatu. And then they've now come back to the heart of the Abraham Empire because the wars are over, and then something happens and it all kicks off again. But the books are very much, at the minute, the first two books are based in Benhar, in the, I suppose, like you say, more Eurocentric side of the books. But as the series goes on, and which is what I'm doing at the minute, is doing quite a bit of research on Micronesian mythology, which actually has Samoan connections, and trying to like tap into some of the specifically Kiribati mythology, which will basically be brought into it toward probably the next book, I'd say towards the middle of the next book, and then the rest of the series. And there'll be many more Pacific Islander and specifically Micronesian characters and references in there. So it's going to be a fusion.
Here, folks.
Yeah.
Right here. And this, I actually wanted to talk about promoting your writing. You are self-published. Tell us a little bit about that process, because I don't think anyone's ever said that self-publishing is easy. So tell us, what was that like? What is that like?
It is like hard work and it is time consuming, but it's also quite satisfying. There are times when you think, why did I do this? Why did I write a book or books? Or and there are times where you want to give up doing it, and you do spread yourself a little bit too thin. But when I wrote the first book, I at first thought I'll try and approach a traditional publisher. And I sent off the first submission, and I immediately thought, I don't know why I'm doing this, because I want to have control over this. And it sounds like a bit control freakish. They came back anyway and said no, because it's not what they were looking for. And instead of me going off to other publishers, I thought, I'm just going to have a go at this, load it up to Amazon platform and go from there. I think with the self-publishing side, although there is a lot of work to it, you have to like bring in more people to help you as you go along. So the first book that I published, The Rat, the Wolf and the King's Fall, very naive going into it. I just thought I could put it out there and it would sell and I wouldn't have to do much about it. And it very much going back only a couple of years ago, so I should have done my research. But as that book came out and as I started to do some self-promotion for it, I started to have more connections with other authors in the local area who were also self-publishing, looking to self-publish, the different routes they went down. So I went down the Amazon route. And that is I'd say a lot more hard work because you don't have a team behind you. It's just you, in my case, me, and then Jamie helped me as well, my partner. But you do have to like start looking at things like social media a bit more. And I am not a big social media user. I stopped using Facebook on a daily basis quite a while back. And some of the girls at work said to me, use Instagram. And I was like, oh God, do I have to use Instagram? But it's a really good tool, especially for meeting the audience that will read your book. And for me, especially recently, that has been Pacific Islanders, which is great because I think that's the thing. When you self-publish, even though my book is fantasy fiction, again, the first 2 books are very Euro-British centric in the way it's told, and most of the characters are as well. Obviously, you got friends and family to read the book, and it kind of like trickled across from there. Trying to find your audience, how to connect with your audience as well is an interesting one. Because it's not just social media that comes into it, it's how you market it.
Right.
I found that even face-to-face stuff was actually doing really well. So there's lots of like little market towns around where I'm based, and you can book a store and sell your books face-to-face. And that generated like quite a few sales. And that's also quite nice that you can chat to people, because you are just stuck behind the computer or with your pen and paper writing the book. And although it's scary, when people start approaching you and talking to you about book and also asking you about self-publishing, that's quite nice, because you can just have like really random chats with people about it as well. But it is a lot of hard work. For the first book, I did most of the editing myself, and then I passed it on to an editor who I paid to edit the book. So with the first book, it was very much a learning curve, because there were quite a lot of mistakes made with that book. Just in the way that I approached publishing it, like launching it, promoting it. I didn't do a lot of promotion with it at all. Kind of just like let it out there and then left it because I just needed a break from it. And then with the editing side, I mean, there's so many ways you can edit a book, but I did approach an editor, and she went through it, but she also missed a lot. So when I went to publish it, I had a few people coming back to me saying, there's mistakes in your book. I was like, what? I've paid this like person to look at it. But again, I can't just blame her. That was me for being naive, thinking she picked up all the typos and stuff. So with the second book, I approached it completely differently. I actually took some time off work and did a few courses on self-publishing. I found a really great guy that I'll recommend in a minute for anyone who's looking to self-publish. He's an Irish author. He's really good at helping people self-publishing. He comes from a marketing background. But I took his course, and I took a slow approach to it. I did quite a lot of revisions. I had 2 people check the work instead of going to a professional editor this time. And one of the lovely people that helped me edit the second book, she is actually a wife of another self-published author I know. So she went through it with a fine-tooth comb over a couple of months. And I just didn't rush it. And I think that's the difference. I rushed the first book with not the writing of it, but everything else. And then with the second book, I just took way more time with it. So I'd actually written the draft of the second book in the year that I published the first one, and then I just parked it and left it for quite some time looking at it. I think I had like PTSD from doing the first edits of the first book. I was like, I don't want to look at this. So yeah, completely different approach with self-publishing the second time round, and getting involved in social media and with you guys. Like, I think, I don't know, it might have been Little Pacific Books.
Readers, yeah.
She approached me, kind of went from there, and I was like, oh, like, oh my God, there's Pacific Islanders. I don't know why I didn't think there were, but like, I think because I am based in the UK, I'm so far away from the Pacific region, and it's been much more fun the second time round, and I've just taken the Islander approach to self-publishing, just done it really laid back and not being too stressed about it. If people need more time to look through the edits, I'm like, yeah, carry on. When it's ready. I got more people involved in doing the book covers, so I didn't do it myself this time. I've got so the third edition, they're very more fantasy fiction style, especially with the font. I obviously use the same illustrator for the books. He is amazing. Like a real gem and a real find. He's actually my partner Jamie's friend from school, and when I was writing the first book, he mentioned that his friend Casey, he likes to be known as Brock, he is a tattoo artist, but he works with dot work, which is very similar to tattooing of the Pacific Islands, because it's obviously it's completely different methods, but it's like, you know, the tapping of the ink, and but he makes that evident in the style of his tattoos, so you can see the dot work. And I was a bit like, oh, okay. Do you want to do my artwork? But so I used him, but I also started to, after doing this course that I did with this guy, he's called David Gochran, this guy, and some people may have actually heard of him, but he runs a course on self-publishing. I think it's still free, this course, so if anyone's interested in it and how you choose your genre of book, how you market it, he goes into Facebook ads, Amazon ads, the whole shebang. He knows his stuff, this guy, and he does a lot of talks at conventions and stuff as well. He's very, very easy to like listen to and understand. So if you go to davidgochran.com, I'm sure his course is still free, which I can't believe it's free. It's so good and full of such useful information that is why, another reason why I took so long publishing the second book, because I just did an overhaul of everything, of the book covers, getting more people involved in the publication of the book. I went on to Fiverr, so for me before, definitely was snobbish before, thinking I don't want to use Fiverr, like I don't know who's on there, like, but they're fantastic. Like the people on there are great. I had a designer based in Sri Lanka who helped me with all the setting out of the books, because when you self-publish and you use something like Amazon to self-publish, trying to like set out where the font sits on the page, because you're given like a rectangle of the measurements of your book. You basically say how many pages you've got and what size you want your book to be, and then they give you this template. And trying to fiddle around with it yourself, if you are not a graphic designer, which I am not, is really hard. So you then send yourself a test of the book and it's all squiff and it looks wrong. So sending it to someone who knows what they're doing, and they'll do like revisions for you depending on who you choose. They're fantastic, and it's inexpensive. You don't have to fork out a lot of money using platforms like Fiverr, but you get amazing talent for the money. And that's another thing with self-publishing. You do spend money doing this because you don't have a publishing house doing this for you. Most of it is time, but you do need to spend some money when you self-publish. And then I got a guy to do the ebook setting out for me. So I did the setting out of the paperback, but the ebooks are quite fiddly. And there's a few programs online that you can use. So he did that for me, and he was just brilliant. I think he thought I was a bit of an idiot, but I was like, oh, can you do this? Oh, this line here. And I think he was like, okay, you need to chill out. I was like, oh, but they've got so much patience. So I think for me, if you go down the self-publishing route, definitely do it, because one, you get control of everything that you do. I don't think I would have been able to do the covers that I've chosen, because if you look at the covers, and specifically the emblem in the middle, there's a lot of Micronesian patterns in there, and that symbol in the middle of the first book is,
right.
You might recognize this. That is the Micronesian version of the frigate bird. So, but it's obviously slightly different depending on the islands in the Pacific that you come from, isn't it? So that's I think that So
you know the symbol for this one right here, the second book, right, and what's that symbol in the middle there?
I can't tell you that without giving away the ending.
Oh, don't say anything. Okay, no, I was just wondering if there was
ending
like
of that
some
book
significance
anyway.
to like a tattoo instrument or something. No, that's why I was just thinking. Shh.
Yeah, so it's in like the geometric style of Micronesia, so it does represent something, that thing in the middle. The first one is a frigate bird, which is very, there is a frigate bird in the story.
Right.
If anyone, on the national flag of Kiribati, there is a frigate bird flying over the sea.
I just clicked. I was like, oh yeah,
on that one in. But that one, you'll find out you kind of find out towards the latter half of the second book what that symbol is. Yeah.
Oh, I look forward to it. I can't wait. I was just we've just finished school 2 weeks ago, so I've got so many things that I want to read, but I was just like, this was already in my suitcase and I had to bring it out just for this interview.
How long do you get off then?
How long do we get off for break? We go back in August. So I think for the kids, it's about 12 weeks. And then for us, it's about 10 weeks. Okay, I'm lying. I think for students, it might be 10 to 11. It's a long time anyways. It's a long,
we get like 5 or 6 weeks over here for like people that work in schools, breaks.
We finished first, second week. I'm going home for 5 weeks, so I think teachers, we get about 9 weeks and students 10, something like that. Like students don't come back till end of August, but we go back. I think it's the second or something like that, mid-August.
How long have you been in Japan for then?
7 years now. No, it'll be 7 years on. This is 6 years, but 7 years soon, August 1st. I think I lost track.
That's
anyways,
amazing.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's summer right now, so it's winter in New Zealand, so I'm not looking for. I'm looking forward to going home, but I'm not looking forward to winter. I hate it with a passion. But I love playing in the snow. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I like playing in the snow for like a day or two, and then it turns to mush, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah. So I'm out here just trying to enjoy. It was like 36 degrees today. Like it's crazy. I love summer, so I'm just trying to enjoy.
You get used to the heat, don't you?
I love it. It's like here. So like people here, like foreigners will say like it's the humidity is a killer, but I would take that over winter any day. Trust me. I'm like, right now it's just slowly heading into summer. I think the rainy season is just finishing, so I've got a week to just get as much sunshine before I go home to that horrible winter, which to be honest, family. I get to see family, which I'm excited, but to be honest, like Auckland cold is not like cold. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'll probably get there and be like, oh, it's hot. Like here is like 2 degrees, 1 degree is cold, right? But over there it'll probably be like I know 16 degrees and everyone will be like, oh, it's so cold. Like, anyways, let me stop.
Yeah.
I was wondering about your website, because you do have a website, and I was wondering about, because you, in terms of promotion, self-promotion, you give you these freebies, and people can you've given your followers opportunities to read a few chapters here. You also have a YouTube channel where you plug your work through there. You drop a short story here, and I wanted to know, is there response? Like, do you get quite a good response from your followers?
Yeah, actually, again, I'm going back to this guy, David
Mm.
Cochran. I was thinking, how do I reach more people, and how do I offer more things to people that have read the books, and give them a little like thank you, and give them some more like tidbits about the background of the books. So I did the website myself. It's a WordPress platform, and it's got a very fancy theme on it. I quite enjoy doing the website stuff. But there is a thing called Book Funnel, and I think there's a couple more platforms like it. And it's a community of authors, self-published authors. Some traditional authors use it, but it's kind of like it connects to your newsletter. So I specifically use WordPress for my website, and then I use an emailing subscription service. I was with MailChimp, but they are awful. They're just so complicated. I was like, I can't do this. I just use ConvertKit, and you link it. You've got all these like sequences. I don't know how to explain this other than when you get I don't know if you have this. Do you have like a new newsletter that you can offer things through?
No.
It's really odd without showing you how you do it. Basically an email platform, and you can use things. I use this thing called Book Funnel that you can upload parts of your book to. Obviously you have to make like snippets yourself, or create little ebooks. You can do self-promotion stuff on there with other authors, and go on their email subscriptions and offer it to each other's followers for free in the same genre, because obviously I'm not going to offer my book to someone that likes, I don't know, history books or so you find other authors on there, and I created one myself where I got a load of authors to join, and I promoted their books to my newsletter. I don't do that all the time, because if you bombard your own readership with other people's stuff, they get a bit knocked off with you, which is understandable. And I'm only new to the newsletter stuff. I only started doing it towards the end of last year, I think, because I didn't know how to use it really. But you basically, with self-publishing, one of the ways that you can keep your readers entertained whilst they're waiting for another book to come out, or if you want to give them some background information, is to do a newsletter. And at first I was like, oh god, I don't want to write an email every week because I haven't got anything to say. I really think, what do I say? So I did this course, and he's very good, because he's like, if you like, he's got fantasy fiction books, or historical fiction books, and he also does books for authors. But what he says in it is, if you do fictional books, is to just do an email a month, and it could be about the background of your books. But part of the newsletter, and to entice people to a newsletter, is to offer a freebie, and that, I think that's across any business that you do. But specifically for authors, is to offer a free book, and it's really like, it's actually quite fun, because I thought, what can I offer? I thought, I'll write a short story about one of the characters in Benhar, but as a younger child. So I did that, and it kind of got me thinking, I'll do some more of these at some point. like little snippets of certain characters. So when you sign on, you get a freebie, and I offer things like a bit about. It's kind of like a bit of indulgence, the newsletter, because I can talk about my Kiribati heritage, can talk about Pacific Island authors. I can talk about the background to the books as well and how they are historically connected. I think I did one on the tea rooms recently. So I think that is a really good way. And actually, you can see people engaging with that, because when you use one of these subscription platforms, you can see people who've signed on to it. I get quite a lot of people chatting to me on emails from those as well, like some random blog posts that I've done through the newsletter, and like, oh, I really enjoyed this one, can we have more of this? And it gets your brain working. I think when it comes to writing a book, like the first draft, I'm quite quick at it, but when it comes to doing emails, I'm so slow. I think I'm way more effort into this, and I've got to do way more research on it, and because it's not fantasy, is it? It's based in realities. I have to like make sure I do it properly, or just make sure I put more of an effort into the research side of it. So that's one way of doing it, and then you connect it all into the website. It's a technical thing, but it's once you learn it, it's actually quite very easy to set up. But it's like a sequence. So as soon as someone signs onto the newsletter through the website or through Instagram, they're then sent that freebie. I think I've changed it recently, so you get the first 5 chapters of the first book free, so you can start introduction into it. And the reason why I did the first 5 is if you go on Amazon, they only let you read the first like nearly 3 chapters. I was like, well, that's not going to introduce anyone to the book.
Right.
Like for me, with my book, I feel you need to get to the end of the 5th chapter to then be like, right. I think people have many different opinions. Like if I can't read a book, if I don't enjoy the first chapter of a book, I'll put it down.
Yeah.
Some people another author said to me something random about if you turn to page something like 67 or something in a book, if you don't enjoy that page, it's not a good book. I thought, what a weird thing to say. Why would you turn to page 67 or whatever in a book? And I think it's down to the author. And for me, I think you need to, although it's an introduction to the world, the book, the first 5 chapters of the book are also, I suppose, a long-winded version of like setting all the characters out, setting up the plot, and then getting into the action. So, and then that's why I did the first 5 on that. And then I think I then pinpointed my newsletters to a couple of bits about Kiribati, and specifically a man in the book who I just refer to as a tattooed man at this stage, but he has a Kiribati, and it's very specific to Pacific Islanders, this shark tooth sword weapon, which is what a lot of the islanders use and what we have historically used in fighting. So he has one of those. So I wanted to like shoehorn, this is some of what you'll get when you read the story at the beginning. Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Honestly, I can't wait. I can't wait to just, get into this. Like I have been counting like the last 2 months, just counting down to summer break, just so I can I have been reading just because I commute and I read on my phone. But it's just being able to just chill and read and not have to worry about anything like planning or grading papers or that kind of stuff. You are an author, and although you also do a lot of you do a lot of work promoting your writing, you also do a lot of work promoting Pacifica authors, other Pacifica authors. Like I think it's so great. I think it's awesome. Because I think I said to you off camera, you don't have to do that with the gazillion things that you've got going on yourself with your own work, honing your own craft, and putting yourself out there, being self-published and all. But I love that you're someone who does promote other work by other Pacifica authors. And I guess my question is, have you connected with any of these authors online?
I've spoken to I think I'm saying her name right. I haven't spoken to her like face to face like we're talking. Vanda, is it Simon or
Oh
Simon?
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with her. I found her
Oh
books through your Instagram page. So I was like, I wonder what other books are out there. And I thought, oh my God, there's a crime writer.
I know.
Islander. I was like, what? No one. I love crime books.
My reaction exactly. Yes. You know what? My reaction exactly. First of all, just quickly, that the thing with AAPI, I wanted to just post authors that I felt are not always getting, like, I just wanted to highlight people that I had just, I was just like, it's not about promoting we want to promote everyone, but let's find other people. And then when I came across her, and then I was like, wait. Successful crime writer from New Zealand. Yeah. I was just like, what?
I was like, I
Fijian. I was just like, what?
I literally dropped all my other, like, everything on my reading list. It's like, I'm going to read your books. I've just finished Containment. So
I've read the first book. So that's also, I've actually got the books. I've got the audio versions. And let me tell you just real quickly why I got the audio version is because the parts of New Zealand where she's writing about, the setting, I just wanted to hear that New Zealand accent and
yes.
the like slang, colloquial language and stuff like that. So I actually I read the first book, but then I was like, oh, I'm gonna switch to the audio, and so I've got the rest of the audio versions on my phone, on my Kindle, and that's also summer listening. So I can't wait.
I wonder whether I should maybe listen to the audio of the fourth of the Sam Shepard one. Because weirdly, when she talks about Dunedin, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to. She kept making reference to obviously the Pacific Ocean. And I was like, is it on this side of New Zealand or that side? I was like, I need to look this up. I thought, so maybe I should as well listen to the audio.
Yeah, I love it, because I was just like, oh. Yeah, first of all, I was like, hey, she's part Fijian, and wait a minute, why is she writing from the South Island? And then when I was looking into the setting and I was just like, okay, you know what? I have to get the audio because I want to hear that accent. Like, yeah.
They're so good. The character is so like bolshy and stubborn. I was like, I love this. It's not like UK like true crime. It's like all like moody and like straight into the action. She's got a little bit of an attitude problem, which I love.
Yes, I was like, yes,
this is how it should be. I was like, I love this. I'm like completely binged the first 3. So yeah, I've spoken to her because I obviously put her stuff on my Instagram feed. She's like, oh, thank you so much. I went, I love these books. I'm reading them now.
Yeah, she's real cool.
Really, I've kind of like stalked a few of the Pacific Islander authors on there as well. So when you do a post and you can tag everyone in it, I was like, oh, I need to find the author on Instagram. Some of them are hard to find on there because they don't use their published name as it is set out on the book. It's all what they use. There's a Maori-based publishing company. Is it called Huai? I don't know.
Huia Press, I think it is. Yeah.
So I went on there and I did a lot of links to their website, and obviously just basically just stalked the whole lot of them and had a look, and then just kept typing in certain things on Instagram to see if I can find them, and then followed them, and then eventually they followed me. But I think they think I'm a weirdo. But I'm following all of you.
I just think it's so cool. Like that's exactly what I do. Is I'm looking for just anything newly released. I mean, my bookstagram is not just for I love it's absolutely to promote Pacifica authors, but it's not just for that. I also like to promote just books that I love to read, because I'm also like an educator. So I like reposting on my stories a lot of middle school books. I teach middle school as well as high school. So just anything that I think would maybe my students would be interested in, like I repost so it's there, so I can always go back. I can always go back and look at my archives and my stories. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Or I bookmark the posts from these different accounts. So that's my thing. And Vanda Simon, I was so surprised, because I don't think you understand. I mean, people like New Zealand author. When I read successful New Zealand crime writing author, I was just like, there's no way. There is no way she's going to reply to my message or even acknowledge this post that I had made and tagged her in, right? But yeah, then she followed on Twitter. I was like, oh my God, she's so approachable, I guess.
Yes.
And I reached out to her because Fijian Language Week is, I think it's in late, maybe September or October. So she's going to be our guest. Just
my
like
God,
you're our
what
guest
a
for
day.
Kiribati Language Week, she's going to be the guest on the show to drop on Fijian Language Week. So I'm so happy to hear that you've connected with her and that you're making connections, with other authors. Like, I think it's important, like I said before, like there are many of you out there doing your thing, but not many getting the acknowledgement and getting the flowers. And I just think it's important, and I love that you do that. You are not just an author, but you are a reader, and you're putting other people's work out there alongside your work. I think it takes a lot for someone to do that.
I think I'm similar to you with the Instagram though, and I think at the start of using it, I didn't really know what I was doing with the platform, and I had a lot of like my everyday life on there. And then one of my friends said to me, you need to make it more book focused, because if that's why you're on there. So I did start doing that, but mine is a mix of what I'm reading, and what I'm listening to. I do listen to podcasts as well. And then obviously, not this year, the year before, when it was the Pacifica Readathon then, in 2021, get my years mixed up, I started making more Pacific Islander connections. And then it's just really exciting, especially for me, when you're based in the UK, there are no Pacific Islander books as far as I can see. When you go into a bookstore, there's nothing. So to then be shown how many published books there are in the Pacific region, and it's real shame that they're not published here. So for me, I like to use it as a platform to say, yes, I do write, and I myself have Pacific Islander background, but there are so many more of us out here that you should be reading. Like, look at all of this stuff. And so for the Pacific Islander Readathon this year, I was like, everyone is just going to be inundated with all these Pacific Islander books. And in the process, like, because I've been researching, looking on yours and other people's, Katrina from Polynesian Reader, she is great, like the books she recommends. And then on the other side, like what I want to do as well is start doing more self-published authors, because another Pacific Islander, which is Lana from Law Lullabies, she's got her YouTube channel. She does like a lot of readathons, and she's definitely into her fantasy fiction books and her self-published book. She does a lot of promotion for self-published authors. So I need to start making a list of other books I want to read. But it's also, you start doing all this research, going, oh my God, there's all these islanders out there that I can read. It's like, I have no time to read all of these, and all I want to do is read these books. So luckily, during the month of June, we went away on holiday. I was like, I'm just going to binge all of the Sam Shepard series, and I don't care. Yeah, so I've got a list. I recently read Pua's Kiss.
Oh, I've got that. I've got it on my.
Good.
I've got it on my phone.
It is
and I have not read them. It's on my summer reading.
I'm gonna get her next book, but I was like, oh, it's so I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just like, you get this like atmosphere from the book, you're like, oh my god. And she's so good because the book is so thin, but it's this it's incredible. It's the way she's written it is amazing. Yeah.
Okay, I can't wait then.
I think that's the difference as well. The style and writing of Pacific Islanders, because I think we do bring in a lot of all the mythology as well.
Right.
It's so different to what you would find if you go into a traditional bookstore. The stuff is like, it's completely different. And I think that's why I like to recommend the stuff on my Instagram, because I think people, my friends in the UK, should start reading this stuff, because it's not the same tropey stuff that you get in the bookstores. It's completely different. It's you're going to dive into not just a new author, exploring a new author. You're diving into another world,
another world culture,
culture that no one talks about in the other regions of the world, or in some cases has, been wiped out by colonialism, and and it's all coming back up, and it's this celebration of the Pacific Islanders, and it's amazing, and it's really interesting, and it's not just Kiribati,
right,
all these other islands, and we've got Micronesia, Polynesia, Melanesia, which is a whole nother discussion in itself, isn't it? Because immediately people like, if you say you are from the part of your family is from the Pacific, they will automatically go towards Polynesia, which is fine. I mean, especially for our islands, we do have connection with Samoa. Like the creation story is connected to Samoa, but people just, I think to be able to dive into our world, all of our worlds through literature, I think it's really exciting, and it's really fun, and yeah, I just get excited. I'm like, oh my god, there's another book by the Pacific Islander.
Man. Future aspirations, like what else? I mean, obviously this is a series, and so what goals have you yet to achieve? What are you working towards right now, if you can speak on that?
So I'm going to approach the rest of the series differently. So all I'm doing at the minute is working on towards completing the Benhar series. I've not written the first draft of the third book. I'm giving myself a break. I might start doing that in September, October. I actually tend to write the first drafts in the winter because I'm stuck indoors. I'll be made to be indoors, whereas it's the summer here at the minute. I don't particularly want to sit down and write. Yeah, and like we have 2 days of summer, and then it's rain.
Oh yeah,
got to make the most of it.
Summer you have, right?
Yeah,
sorry, awful. I forgot about that.
It's like slightly colder here, but not as cold as I don't know, Iceland. I'm doing some research on mythology at the minute for Kiribati, and I'm trying it. I'm like kicked myself because I could have met up with some of the older generation from the Kiribati contingent here to go through the mythology, and also to discuss the clans in Kiribati. Because weirdly, after writing the first book, there's a lot of information about moons in the book, which might sound a bit odd, but there is a moon clan. Abi Mama is to do with the moon. The name in Kiribati is associated with the moon. You've got the Sun clan. There's all these different clans in Kiribati. I wasn't aware of this. So I'm trying to organise with my mum and the rest of the Kiribati contingent to just sit down and go through everything and have a bit more of discussion, and to discuss some books that have been written on Kiribati but have not been written by Kiribati people. They've been written. There's a book I read recently. It's quite well known to Kiribati people. A Pattern of Islands. It's very well known, but it's written by a British guy back in the 1940s. Although he's very good at he absolutely loved the islands. I mean, this guy he's not here anymore, obviously.
Right.
It's a very old book. He does make a lot of references to the black magic on the islands, the mythology, the connections with Samoa and all. And I was like, I need to sit down and like figure out, because it's not very concise the way he's done it. It kind of jumps around a lot. So I wanted to sit down with Kiribati people and
actually
get it in order.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I'm not going to use all of the mythology in these books, and obviously being very picky with what I use because it needs to tie in with the storyline. Because there are some things that I'm aware of that I want to use, but I just want to make sure I've got it right. And that's important for me because although I am Kiribati, I've mainly been brought up as British in a very Western culture without the mythology of Kiribati. And again, like in Kiribati, there's a lot of Catholicism and there's some Mormons on the island as well. So that people still practice to some extent and are aware of the mythology of the islands, but it's just not at the forefront. So just wanted to go down that route. So once I've got that in place and I'm happy with the information and some of the actual just history of the islands, because I actually found this guy on YouTube that had gone to the islands recently, and he was talking about the different characterizations and stereotypes of the different islands in Kiribati, which was just hilarious to me. Like some of them are they're like, one island is known for telling tall tales. That's the way he explained it. I was like, what? I couldn't stop laughing. I thought, this can't be real. So I asked my mum and she started laughing. She goes, yeah. And then she started telling about the different islands, like this island's known for that and this island's known for being fighters. I'm like, what? Why have you like, I don't know what, my mum has never mentioned this to me and my sisters before. I thought, we need to sit down and you need to tell me everything. So I'm doing that, the research, and having a bit of fun with that. And once I've figured that out, I've decided it's going to be a bit of a feat for me, and it might take a bit longer to get the rest of the series out, but I'm going to sit down and draft the rest of the series and then go from there. And there's another reason why I want to do that, because when you bring out a new publication in a series, I tend to then go back to the last book and then think, I need to revise that. So you'll bring out new editions of the other books. So if I do it in all one go, it will make my life easier, if anything. And then after that, like I think I said to you before at the beginning, I would like to do crime writing.
Right.
And I have a character in mind for that, but I'm going to park her for a bit. And we'll approach that sometime in the future. But I'd quite like to do a few short stories in the meantime, not necessarily on the fictional world of Benhar. It may actually be more leaning towards the Kiribati mythology. So yeah, that's
exciting.
I know, it's just like got to find the time.
It's exciting. And so on that, finding time, actually on that, how do you take care of yourself? Outside of everything that you're, just like writing, what else do you like to do to kind of like disconnect? And
so I mean, lockdown's got a lot to explain for me being extremely lazy recently. I was talking about this at work with some of my colleagues. Like a lot of us at work like to get involved in runs, like fun runs and stuff, but the last 2 years have just knocked that to the side. And I've just, I got really healthy at the beginning of lockdown, and then it went out the window. So I'm now back into running because I find it helps me to de-stress, because the draft side of writing is quite relaxing for me, and I find it quite fun. But when it gets that bit ends and it goes into the editing, I get quite stressed out with the editing. I hate editing my books. It's the worst part for me. Can't stand it. So I like to run, just chill out really, read. read a lot. I've read so much this year. Yeah, I don't do too much, just doing stuff with family and friends and my partner, and just getting away from the computer. Yeah, I think that's good to like just disconnect from. Like at the minute, I've not really used social media. I think I did some book fairy stuff on Friday, which was a bit of fun. But other than that, I've kind of like just not really paid attention. We just had holiday, so yeah, just like just not doing anything to do with the book stuff. And obviously, I work full time as well. I work although I took a break to do to start learning a bit more about self-publishing, and then leading up to the publication of the second book. I do work full time for an architect's, so I'm a PA for them. So that's just like a normal 9 to 5 job, Monday to Friday. I work a bit from home, a bit in the office, so that's a nice balance. If I'm honest, I just feel extremely lazy at the minute. I'm not. I'm just like,
you're allowed to be. There's no judgment. Yeah. You're allowed to be. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Man, I'm just, I know earlier on in the interview you were like, I absolutely recommend, you dropped a book recommendation, and I was wondering if you have any other book recommendations other than this family audience. Everyone watching, please support Felicity's work. This is my summer reading and I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Do you have any other books that you would like to recommend, or?
I think I will read pretty much everything, anything by Ian Banks. He's very good at getting into the psyche of people. I know I mentioned The Wasp Factory and how dark that is, but his other stuff is not that dark. His book, The Crow Road, is the first book that made me cry because it's quite emotional. I mean, that's got a little love interest in there, but it's not your tropey love interest. It's just this teenager going through life and, falling in love and finding out, that they're in love with someone else. And that was the first book that made me cry. It's quite a funny book as well. Having said about The Wasp Factory, though, my favourite book is The Count of Monte Cristo.
Okay.
For the revenge.
Okay.
I love that book. I think it's a massive book and a big undertaking to read the thing, but I've read it 3 times. I love it. It's got loads of plots and twists and turns, and that's a good classic for me. I read just a lot of general fiction as well. I wouldn't say at the minute, apart from Ian Banks stuff, that I have anyone particular. The only other author I'd probably recommend to pick up, because he's bonkers, absolutely bonkers, is a guy called Paul Murray, an Irish writer. Okay. He's got 3 books out. Again, he's Irish, so he's got a very dark sense of humour. They're good. So I think Skippy Dies is his first book, which is about all these kids that go to a school that I think is run. I can't remember if it was actually run. They're in a monastery, or it was run by priests. But the kids in it are hilarious in this book. I will read. When you just go into a bookstore and you think that looks like a good book, I'll read that.
Yeah.
I've only tried to read a couple of books this year that I haven't enjoyed, but other than that, I will pretty much read anything and everything if I've got the time.
Me too. Yeah. If I have the time, and
I know.
Okay. Same. Well, we have. I feel like I'm just so comfortable right now that we could just talk for a whole other 2 hours. But who does that? Like, really, who does that?
I want to talk more about you, but
I'm like, I'm just so comfortable right now. Like, oh my gosh, we could just go on and on. I'm just so excited, and I can't wait to see what's coming. Obviously, I'm looking forward to reading the series over summer break. But I'm really excited, Felicity. I'm so excited for what's to come from you. Not just with your craft, but like I said before, I love what you do through your author account / bookstagram, promoting other people's work. I think that's awesome. And it takes a lot for someone to be able to do that. So it's cool. Keep doing you. I just wanted to say,
Likewise, you do so much for the Pacific Islander community. Like there's you and like I said with Katrina and with Lana, like the promotion you guys do, and I think it's because you enjoy it, don't you? It's not just because you haven't got an agenda. It's just you just celebrate, and it's exciting and it's fun, and it's really nice to be able to connect with someone like you and others in our Pacific community and just realize there's a whole other world out there that is, it's great that we all band together and we promote this stuff, but it's also just really exciting just to get stuck into it and just enjoy it for what it is as well. Yeah.
I mean, I want to see, I'd love to see more of our mostly self-published Pacifica authors, writers. I'd love for them to create, their Bookstagram accounts or author accounts so that we can get more of a following. I think, in the stage that we live in, promoting your work and I know, it's not for everyone. Time is also a big part of that, having time to do that. But I would love to just see more of our, Pacific Island authors getting their flowers is what I'm trying to say. So
I would say to any Pacific Islanders that want to do this, like, don't be scared about doing it. It is scary, especially with the first book that you do, but have fun with it. Like, connect with all of us online. Like, we will promote your stuff, like, with, without a doubt, won't we? Like, it's just exciting to see, and again, another Pacific Islander, but have fun with it, and don't just literally take the Pacific Islander approach to doing it. Just chill out, do it in your own time, have fun with it.
So, I mean, I just want to thank you for, taking your time. I know we were trying to figure out a time to really sit down and get this done. And, I appreciate you just coming on, sharing a bit of your journey. I know there's loads more to come from you, but this is a start. Just for anyone listening in and watching, check the bio. I will have the website information in there for you. Purchase and support our Pacifica authors. Check out their writing. Check out Felicity's work. She also has a YouTube channel, which you can click the link in the bio and subscribe. Just keep reading to anyone who's listening and find all those authors. Felicity is one of them. She's on Instagram as well, so make sure you give her a follow. Thank you so much for coming through for Kiribati Language Week. This is just before we wrap up. I know you've already dropped a lot of gems, especially as a writer going through the whole self-publishing journey. So many gems for those hopefully who are wanting to get into publishing and putting their own writing out there. What's one more piece of advice that you can drop? Final words of wisdom, encouragement.
Again, I know I've mentioned this guy before, and he's not a Pacific Islander, but he is Irish.
That's okay.
So if you want to do self-publishing and you want to do it right and you want help, go to davidgochran.com. I might put a link up on my Instagram page. You can just click it there and it will just take you to his website if anyone's interested.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the bio so we're all good.
Yeah, I'll send that to you. You can go do his course. It's really good. He is crazy, but he knows what he's doing. And if you want to get into my Benhar series, the book at the minute, the ebook for the first one is like 99 cents. I'm trying to make it free, but Amazon's really awkward about that. I'm not on their KDP, so I've taken it out. They're really awkward about that. So I'm trying to make the first book free, but they're annoying. Or sign up to my newsletter and you'll get the first 5 chapters free. Yeah.
And it's 99 cents, fam.
Yeah.
Come on now. I mean,
just read it.
That is nothing. So please get out and support support our Pacifica authors who are just putting themselves out there and just their work and on the grind all the time. So it's not easy, but let's support our writers. Very important.
Thank you for having me on.
You're so welcome.